Welcome to the Welcome Home podcast, where we talk about the transformation from troops and boots to veterans in the civilian world. And we talk about all the things, whether you're a veteran, you're a current service member, or you're a family member, all the things that happened during this transformational time in our lives. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Dylan Sessler, Nasty Girl, National Guard Reserve veteran. Is it a National Guard veteran? I'm not sure how that works. We'll call it Army veteran who happens to be in the National Guard. I think that sounds better.
I am.
Dylan, what are we talking about today?
Obviously, we have this lovely gentleman over here named Justin Henderson that we need to talk to. We can't just treat him how we treated Patrick last episode, where he just kind of sat in the corner and we talked to Raymond the whole time.
It's true. So Justin, he's from RecruitMilitary. I know that because his T-shirt says it. Also, I've been following him for years on LinkedIn. T-shirt helps. Last episode we had 2 guests on. We're like, we've never had 4 people in the room. Let's see how it works. Well, one person was about an hour in was like, well, I don't even know why I was here, which was it was fine. It's like, I guess I need my own episode. It's like, hey, you're not wrong. So anyway,
he brought Raymond, so he kind of pushed Raymond to talk more.
Yeah. He brought that evil. All right, so Justin, now you know what we do. What do you do?
Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation, and I can tell I'm going to enjoy myself the next 60 minutes or so. So I'm excited. Yeah. So my background, what I do for a living now, I'm a senior vice president of sales over at RecruitMilitary. Some of us may remember us as Bradley Morris. But what we do is we help veterans find meaningful employment. And we do that through our job board, RecruitMilitary.com. We host job fairs all over the country, both physical and virtual. We have a partnership with the Army Human Resource Command. So we're the only private entity allowed to host job fairs on military installations, which is really cool. We also are part of the Marine for Life. I'm a Marine. And we should be getting the Sailor and Airman for Life soon. So, hopefully by the end of this year, we're going to be able to get any of those PGA companies looking to hire good golfers and get them right out of the Air Force. And, if Crayola's looking for better crayon colors, they can call me.
There you go.
So and I've been doing this about 17 years, but me personally, I grew up in a village about 300 people, about an hour south of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Age of 17, signed up for the Marine Corps Reserve, did the standard Paris Island thing. When I got back home from training, I attended the University of Pittsburgh, earned a degree in economics. Also attended the International Management Institute in Antwerp, Belgium, earned my certificate in European Union Business Law and Diplomacy. All that said, after I graduated, I ended up managing a restaurant, flipping burgers, because that's what happens to military vets, right?
Yeah, that sounds totally normal and logical career progression. Yeah.
It was probably in America too, not Europe.
No, it was here. It was burgers. It was American burgers and freedom fries for everybody.
There we go. Denny's for everybody.
Yeah. And what's really funny is, why I'm so passionate about what I do is I did that for about 2 years. And the whole reason I have this job is like a bad joke. 3 Marines walked into my bar. And all 3 of them got their civilian jobs through Bradley Morris, now RecruitMilitary. And I said, hey, what is that? I want to go there. I want to do that. And 17 years later, here I am. And it's so good.
No, keep going.
Well, I was going to say, it's like, that's so much why I continue to have a role, is because we don't know what we don't know. So we get out and we go, hey, well, I used to work on helicopters. Let me call Sikorsky. Hey, I used to work on missiles. Let me call Northrop Grumman. And we don't realize how good our transferable skills are and how to put those at the forefront of our career search. And that's really what I do every day.
No, in 2000, I joined the reserves, Army Reserves, got deployed in 6, home in 7, laid off in 8. And then in 2009, I could not get a job at $11 an hour as a driver for 2 Men in a Truck at the time, moving company. Not a knock on 2 Men in a Truck. I couldn't get a job as a driver for them, even though I had 40,000 miles logged in Iraq as an 88 mic truck driver. And their argument was I didn't have experience driving a straight truck. And I'm like, well, cool. Like,
Yeah. Well, so I was a truck driver too.
Yeah.
And same thing, right? Hey, you've got stories with missiles, bombs, bullets in the back, right? Hey, sir, stand by. I'm about to shift and see what happens. And they say, hey, you can't drive a moving truck straight on a highway for X amount of miles. Well, there's really interesting what happened last year. The Department of Defense kindly figured this out, and they made an employment navigation partnership with the Department of Labor. So now Andy, 88 Mike, gets out. When he's a TAP or a cap, depending on branch of service, you say, hey, I want to go be a truck driver. I'm an 88 Mike.
Yep.
And that TAP coordinator goes, hold on, let's get you in touch with the Department of Labor. And that way we can get your trip tickets and we can actually log that mileage and get you a CDL on your way out.
Okay.
So the military is getting wise to it a little bit.
All right. So we are very critical of the TAPS program. And maybe we're old and curmudgeony. And the thing about this podcast is, people that listen, and now you've experienced it, our show prep is cool. That's how we say your last name. Let's hit record. Because I don't want to come in with this preconceived notion. And if you're like, I love TAPS, I'm not going to be like, F you, I don't like TAPS. And so now I'm not going to have you. Right. And most people we've interviewed are, even the newest guy was like, the guy we interviewed the other day was 4 years removed. The guy we interviewed last week. So it's like, there's a loss. So help us understand this, because we don't want to put out bad information. What is TAPS doing? How can transitioning soldiers, airmen, sailors, Marines, Space Force cadets.
Can't forget Space Force.
Also, when you say sailors, is that inclusive of the Coast Guard, or do we have to be like coasties? I mean, what do you?
I usually say Department sailors, of coasties.
Is coasties the proper nomenclature? I
imagine it's guardsmen.
Guardsmen?
I would believe so. I'm not. It's funny because I've been doing this long, and they're such a small unit. I don't interact with that many coasties. Also,
they also got moved over to Department of Homeland Security like 15 years ago.
Right. So are they actually military?
Hey, they're protecting our borders.
Coast Guardsmen. Here we go. The formal name, this is Google, according to Clarkston U.S. Coast Guard Academy. I don't know. I'm going to have that. The formal name for a uniformed member of the Coast Guard is Coast Guardsman, irrespective of gender. Coastie is an informal term commonly used to refer to current or former Coast Guard personnel. God, here we go. This is where you lost me. In 2008, the term guardian was introduced as an alternative, but was later dropped
because of the movie.
Oh my God! Was there a movie
about that?
Yeah, there was the Guardian with Ashton Kutcher and
was it?
Was it Kevin Costner? I can't remember.
That's what I was thinking. Kevin Costner. Yeah. I'm like, wasn't it Kevin Costner?
It was both of them. Yeah.
There you go. 2006 film. Kevin Costner, Ashton Kutcher, Reese Witherspoon, Tom Hardy, Neil McDormand. That movie came out in 2006, 2008. I thought it had something to do with the Cleveland Guardians or whatever the hell they are. The former, you can't say it, Indians.
Well, I was going to say, getting back to the TAP class, the original question.
Oh yeah,
transitioning with
here's the thing: we'll always get back to where we started. We squirrel, rabbit hole, you name it, we're on it. All right, TAPS class. Let's get back. I like this guy. He's task-oriented person.
Well, it's what I do every day. So the question: what has changed? What has evolved? What's different? And if you were following, LinkedIn did a LinkedIn Veteran Work Opportunity Report back in 2019. I don't know if you ever read that. If not, I highly recommend it. It talks about how the majority of us have to take a step back when we come out of the military to enter our civilian careers, and that within 3 years, the majority of us bypass our civilian peers. And really what that comes down, what my experience in following veterans that transition out into careers is that it's our human skills. Corporate America calls it soft skills. Our ability to shift it into fifth gear when we need to, the ability to operate safely in times of chaos, right? Be the calm in the storm. All those things are what make us excel. But the TAP class itself, what happened was during that time, Human Resource Command was looking for ways to improve. So they went out and talked to corporate America and said, hey, what are the skills that we can bring to our soldiers, sailors, everybody else that can help them be more successful in their transition? And that's where we became involved, and we started to give our feedback. And we actually ended up winning that contract with the Army Human Resource Command. We ended up going toe to toe with LinkedIn at Fort Campbell. And it was really a David versus Goliath, because we're not a big business. We have a big footprint, but we're not a large organization. And we're really proud that we won, because it was what we do inside the systems. And really what it came down to was that we're actually helping each soldier sailor write their resume correctly, figure out, hey, what does this term in the military equate to in the civilian world? Hey, I don't want to be a truck driver anymore, but what could I do outside of the military to leverage the skill sets and experience I had in the military? And for me, it was problem solving and just not taking no for an answer, right? I have the discipline to be a good salesperson, because it's about waking up every day and hunting. Mm-hmm. And that's what I do. So what happened was, over the last year, we started to embed more and more into these TAP classes. And then about 2 or 3 months ago, we were invited back to Campbell to talk to all the TAPS coordinators and help them grow. And what happened after that is we were asked to have a RecruitMilitary representative at the TAP classes. Again, to get in there and get dirty and really have conversations, because probably when, the people you're talking to went through, it was just that standard, hey, here's how you build a resume. And it's like a DOD resume. It's not going to work in any applicant tracking systems,
100%.
ATSs, right? It's not going to work in a keyword search on LinkedIn when a recruiter is looking for you. And that's really what we're bringing to the table. And then on the back side, what I really like is our job board. So if either of you guys could do it right now, well, it's past 5 Eastern, but if you would sign up, actually you could probably do it now with work. But if you sign up right now for recruitmilitary.com and build a profile, and if it's not above 80% complete, we have a SkillBridge team, which we can talk about SkillBridge later, but we have a SkillBridge team of about 20 transitioning veterans. And all they do is call the people that sign up for our job board and get their profile up to 90% or better, so that corporate America can find you. Because that's the hard part. Companies come to me all the time and say, hey, we want to hire military, we just don't know what we're doing. And so what we're trying to do is get that more personal touch to build that bridge.
So who is your customer? Is it the transitioning vet, or are you getting compensated by the company that's you're placing vets into? Or help me understand the economics of it. And the reason, because one thing that, you got to follow the money in a good way. I'm a capitalist. I love capitalism. I love when companies figure out how to do things, right? And when we understand the money trail, because the challenge I've seen, I got in the franchise world, the challenge I saw coming out of the military was there's all these people that want your money, and they want your, and so I did the Yellow Ribbon program with my college, and I was like, oh, they're really standing behind veterans. No, they like the fact that Yellow Ribbon check comes every month. And when I got in the franchise world, it was like, hey, we want to support you because you're a vet. No, you like the fact that I have discipline, and I have a little bit of cash, and I have structure in my life. And so the likelihood that I'll be successful in a franchise is higher than my civilian counterpart. So how do you guys get compensated?
So first of all, I don't think it's bad for a franchise to understand that they're going to get a greater success rate from a vet, right?
So no, not at all.
I would think that's okay.
Yeah.
But as far as us, we're no fee to the veterans. It's a free service to the military. The corporations pay us for access, training, development. So but what's really neat, it's funny, we're about 90% remote as an organization. And that started about 2018, 2019, and then COVID hit. And, it was kind of sad how little it affected my life, because I work above my garage and I have 3 little kids, so I don't go anywhere much. But anyways, we got together last week as a team for the first time in 5 years. And it was really neat to have the conversations of just what you said. Where does your loyalty lie? That's what the real question is. Where does your loyalty lie? And that's a hard answer, because we have a recruiting team. They're titled recruiting managers. All they do is work with veterans and bring them into our system, get them squared away, get them interviews, do all that. I'm a salesperson, so my job is to bring in the organizations, and then educate them on the value of military, and then we make that match. So where does the loyalty lie? Our recruiting team is 100% loyal to the veteran and military spouse. And I am loyal to my client that is trying to learn how to hire veterans properly.
No,
So that's really where that push and pull comes together. It's a healthy tension, you know?
Oh no, I appreciate the transparency because for the longest time I would go to military.com thinking I was getting the best information. And no, military.com is what? It's run by Monster. It was like, why do these people keep wanting me to go to college and sign up for this thing I don't want? Well, because in my head, military.com was a government funded, promoted organization. It's like, no, it isn't.
No, they just got there first and bought that URL. That's all.
That's it. So no, I appreciate that. Because people often ask me, they're like, "You're the only veteran I know. How do I hire more veterans?" And I'm like, "I'm not. I'm not I'm looking for those same candidates, and I struggle."
Well, and also, I was an E4. I got meritorious E5, but didn't stay in for the full year to keep it. Yeah. But so it's small unit, right? Small visibility. The platoon commander never shared anything with me of significance. Yeah. So when I started this job, I had that small aperture, and over years, I understood the value of different branches of service, different ranks. I now value officer leadership versus senior non-commissioned officer leadership. They both have their own value points in the right place in corporate America. So that's a lot of it. It's just like, hey, how do you know? 88 Mike, right? Hey, man, I can tell you about convoys. I can tell you about driving. I can give you all this stuff. But if you're asking me about, how to build a cockpit, I don't know if I'm the guy for that. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I think that the best thing, that LinkedIn Veteran Opportunity Report, I know it's a little antiquated, it's 4 years old, but it's insightful. It's a good place to start and just think about it. And another thing, people don't realize the numbers, right? So I'm going to hit you with a couple stats because I too have a show, Vetonomics. Shameless plug.
We're all about, we are beholden to no one. This is Dylan and I on a Monday afternoon talking to other veterans for an hour. We are, let me tell you, if RecruitMilitary wants to sponsor us, I can be bought, right? I'm not saying just the second you tell me what I can or can't say, then we're done. Our relationship is over.
Yeah, right.
You get, that's it.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Nope. No one puts baby in a corner.
Good luck trying to put Andy in a corner.
Oh my God. So I have another podcast and I get approached a couple of times, 2-3 times a month about people like, we're thinking about sponsoring you. I'm like, is there any chance you'll ever tell me what I can or can't say? Well, we have corporate guidelines. I don't. Thank you. And then we move on with the conversation.
Yeah.
Anyways, Vetonomics, that sounds interesting. Here's the deal. If you invite me on if on your podcast, it's not a shameless plug. It's a cross promotion. We call that in the biz, cross promotion.
Yeah. Well, I'll do that. I have a lot of guests. I bring guests on from corporate America, like I have the COO of ASA, Obloy, coming in to talk about home because they build the windows that go in homes across the country. So we're going to talk about the housing market and what he's seeing. But really what I do is I break down the jobs report the first Friday of every month and say, hey, what does this mean to you, a career-seeking veteran, or you, a hiring authority trying to target career-seeking veterans? And just the numbers themselves, there's about 19 million veterans in the United States. 9 million are 65 or older. Wow. 4.5 million are 50 to 65, and 5.5 are below 50. So you have 5.5 million of that younger generation. And right now we have a 2.2% veteran unemployment report. So that's 220,000 vets looking for work across the country at any given time.
That ain't a lot.
It's a really small number. And so when people come to me and go, hey, I want a veteran, they start adding all these things to it, right? That has worked in corporate America X couple years, that has done this, has done that, has done that. I always respond, no, you don't want a veteran. You're looking for somebody with a specific industry experience that happened to serve their country. Yeah. And in this market, that's really not something corporate America can do. They need to look for talent. And that's really where we shine, right? We shine because we're highly trainable, highly motivated, self-starters, safe operators, team foot, all that stuff. When somebody thinks about military, they go, oh, yeah, that's us. But the thing is, corporate America, the way they interview is all hard skills and what they call soft skills, which are actually humans, and they take that away.
Yeah.
And so it's so much my job to bring that to the forefront. So if you're a veteran looking for work right now and you're thinking about, hey man, I'm just not winning these interviews, really try to reframe your value points to bring that human capital to the front. Hey, I'm the hardest worker I know. I'm extremely disciplined, safe operator. You know, when I first took the sales leadership role here, I remember the EVP asking me what makes a good salesperson, and I replied back, discipline. And that's it. That's all it takes. Yeah, because if you have the discipline, the talent comes behind it. The skills come behind it, right? None of us were a good shot when we first picked up that rifle. But after a while, you became a pretty darn good shot. And it's all that discipline that you learn and what you carry with you. And that, if you feel beaten up in your career search right now, just fall back on that. Fall back on all the way you grew yourself through your military career and the way you pushed yourself, and just keep that mental toughness going through the process and understand this is it. You just got to execute the plan, because at the end, the goal will be achieved. And I think that's really important.
Justin, how do you facilitate both bringing veterans up to that level of being wanted by a company or an organization, corporation, and also bringing corporations and companies into the kind of relatable knowledge? Kind of how do you bridge that gap between?
Bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you guys
That's
do that?
the $1 million question, right? That's it. Well, that's kind of what Andy and I kind of talked about the recruiting managers that are bringing in the candidates every day. That's all they're doing, is they're educating those candidates on their value props. They're getting to know about their families, getting to know their desires, right? Hey, what are you trying to, and then revamping that resume for them. Okay, here, let's get your resume squared away. This is going to hit better for you.
Is that
that
like a one-on-one thing, like via email, on Zoom? Like, how do you guys do that?
It's up to it's kind of up to the candidate. You know, I talked to a guy today that we were having a conversation about an offer I gave him through Toyota. And he said it to me. He goes, I'm actually just better via text, because I don't like doing the words immediately. And so some people just prefer the email and others prefer the face-to-face. It's really up to the candidate, to that veteran.
Mm-hmm. And are you primarily working with Fortune 500 companies, or what does that look like?
I've made an 11-person company, a 13-person company, and I do work with global Fortune 500s. Yeah. Okay. So we also run MBA Vets, which is it partners with the top 75 MBA programs, and we host an event in Atlanta in October where those programs send their veteran students to us. And then first years are looking for internships, second years are looking for employment. And then we'll have about 100 companies or so in attendance. And that's the big dance. That's the Microsofts, the KPMGs, the big banks, Google, you name it, they're all there. And I'm the host of that.
KPMG?
KPMG's there, yep, consulting firm. Oh, okay. It's an accounting consulting firm like EY, top 3 globally. And so it's a bunch of infantry officers, SWOs, things like that go to really good MBA school looking for employment. And so that's a 2-day event that I'm on stage for the whole 2 days. And that's really cool to see, is because these companies match up talent for talent. So the veterans that are coming out of these schools are really, really, really high performers. And so these companies will bring in their CEOs, C-suite, VPs, high-level people for these events. That's pretty cool to see. By the end of it, I can't even talk. I'm so excited. I'm up till 11, 12 o'clock at night talking to these guys, and up in the morning helping them out. So it's a really good event.
Interesting. You kind of talked about how you deal with the veterans specifically, but how do you do the
educate the client?
Right.
So and there's the rub, right? You never bite the hand that feeds you, but sometimes you got to shake it, Mm-hmm. And it really, a lot of times our point of entry is through recruiting or talent acquisition, human resources, right? Because they've got the budget, it's their job to fulfill these roles. But no matter what, the magic doesn't happen unless I can have the conversation with the hiring. And when you talk to that hiring authority, it's interesting. So another history lesson. Job descriptions were created during the Great Depression. We had 25% unemployment rate. Mm-hmm. They were created to do this. The biggest walls you possibly could to get the right person in, right? That was it. Here we are at 2.2% unemployment for vets, 3.4% national unemployment. We're doing the same thing. We're not hunting for talent. We're not hunting for high performers. They're hunting for mid-grades that'll sit in a role. All right, hey, I need a guy that'll be here for 5 to 10 years. You're like, okay, well, I looked at your C-suite and it rotates every 2 to 3. What's going on here? So it's my job to kind of be that chisel that gets in front of that hiring manager. Well, what do you really need? And when you talk to them, they don't, that job description, it's like a foreign language. They're like, we need a hard worker, self-starter, that's going to show up on time, going to be driven. When I give them an order, they're going to take it. If they have a question, they're coming to me. They're not going to do anything unsafe. All those things that are us. And then I go, okay, cool. Show me that on your job description. Right? And the light bulb goes off. So what I do is I translate that job description into what's called a performance-based job description. And a performance-based job description is where you're actually walking through the role itself. This is what you're going to do, right? And so that vet can go, oh man, I've done that in the military before. And they make that connection. So once they make that connection and they have the conversation with the hiring manager, I've bridged that gap. But it really is a ground game. Like we haven't found the magical way to automate that. That conversation is is video like this, and it's brainstorming and creative problem solving. We haven't found the perfect video just to fix it.
No, what I keep hearing that resonates with me is, we hear, I know this, right? Veterans coming out, it's a skill gap, right? That's the fucking hashtag catchphrase buzzword. And one of my coaches, military vet, Chris Kalenda, he showed me an XY axis. He used different words, but what I understand from it was, you have a skill and you have a will, and veterans have a high will, and their skills normally aren't where they need to be. And so with that, it's an opportunity for learning and growth. And I like what you said. You're saying, hey, it takes about 3 years to get from where you were in the military to equivalent in the civilian world, and then the sky's the limit. I think almost verbatim we said that in one of our very first episodes, that you got, if you're right, let's say you're a 05, 06 making 120, let's call it, right? You got to step back to 80, but and it might be 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years before you're back to 120. And then the opportunity is you still got 15 more years of work. You will more than wake up for, those 2 or 3 lean years. So I appreciate your data lined up with my hillbilly math.
It's funny. I wish I would have met you guys before this, because I have a shirt that says veteran in crayon with Lance Corporal in crayon. That would have been great for the show. I'll wear it for the next
perfect.
one.
But the challenge is it's a very serious time. Yeah. And a lot of people fuck it up. And we're not like so lighthearted where it's being dismissive. We'll say, hey, like I said, hey, what made you successful in the military will also make you successful in life, not even your career, in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it. And it's like, the skill side, there's so many, I find that in the military, you're taught to have the conversation, right? What I'm finding right now that's missing in America is not enough people are talking face to face, right? And having the conversations, or are talking around each other, right? Yeah. And I think that's what really happens when you land inside of a company and you find something wrong and you have a conversation about it. Everybody goes, whoa. Like, yeah, in the military, this is what we're taught. Hey, I did 100%. Something wrong that needs to be corrected. Hey, this needs fixed. Whoa, what's going on? Hey, because if I don't fix myself, somebody could die. Let's get this fixed. And we just bring a different mentality to it. And you have to remember that. Another part is, I tell people, like, think about when you're thinking about promotion boards and you're preparing for a promotion board and all the work that goes into that, right? Or an inspection and your uniform and all that work you put into it. Did you put that same amount of effort in your career transition out of the military? Or did you drink beers until it was the last week to hang out with your boys and then stepped out into your hometown and went, oh crap, what am I going to do now? You've got to take it serious, because what I say all the time is we are unique, but we are not special. We are unique because we raised our right hand to serve something bigger than ourselves. But corporate America is not going to treat us special for it. Yeah, they're going to put out a great marketing campaign, right? They're going to put out great commercials on the Super Bowl featuring us in uniform. But when you actually apply to that ATS system, you're not special. And you have to remember that. So put that discipline and that ability to build a plan and execute to work in your career transition. And don't wait the week before and expect TAPS to fix everything. Like you said, it's imperfect. 6 months, start laying in bed, thinking about what little Justin wants to do when he grows up, right? Do you love sitting in that cab driving, or do you want to get out of that cab and not driving, right? Hey, do you enjoy being around people and you want to be a frontline leader where you're managing people every day? Or do you not like having those conversations and you want to be behind a computer all day? Start figuring out what's going to drive you and what's going to make you successful now. So when that transition hits, you're not scared and you're not trying to figure out what you're going to do. Because if you're prepared, you just have to execute the plan.
And it's, we know this military, right? It is simpler to adjust a plan than it is to make one up as you go.
Yep.
It's like things aren't going to go to plan. That's fine. You got a default azimuth. You know you're going generally north. Good. Go generally north, which is a hell of a lot better than sitting in the kill zone, because if you might not be in the kill zone in time, the kill zone will come to you. Like you said, that if you're calling me, a month out, say, hey, I'm I go on terminal leave in 30 days and I haven't started. You got the same options you had 2 years ago. How do I say? The options are there. The flexibility and the opportunities aren't. Right? You gotta pave the path.
The knowledge.
Yeah, you got a lot to learn. You have a lot of options.
What's that Colin Powell? You have to be comfortable moving forward with 70% of the information. Yeah. Just forward movement. And the joke I always crack too, it's the first thing you do, you go outside the wire, go to plan B. Right? That's it.
Yeah.
Boom. All right. Hey, but at least you had somewhere to start, like you said. And that understanding the core of what's going to make you happy and what's going to drive you is all that's important. Because you don't know, we used to run these hiring events every month in Hampton, Virginia, outside of Norfolk. And I'd have, a couple hundred veterans come in, transitioning out of the military there. And I always raise my hand. Who here said, I can't wait to get out of the military and start making cheese? And everybody laughs, like, haha. And I say, you think that's funny because Kraft is here. They're going to hire 2 or 3 of you tomorrow. And every time Kraft would hire them, but good man, go to make some cheese. They didn't know, so get out there, have conversations, go to job fairs, talk to companies. Hey, I don't know what I'm valuable for. Talk to me. Define what you want, right? And you and I met on LinkedIn, Andy. LinkedIn's invaluable for the transitioning vet because you can source by where you're going to relocate to and look for companies there and then talk to people inside those companies that are vets. Or maybe an industry or a company you want to get into, or you're still in uniform. Now's the time to start posting the video content and the things on LinkedIn because I can tell you as an old timer vet, I've been out 20 years. I love that stuff, right? We love being connected to the military when we get out. And so if you're transitioning out, you put a couple URA videos out, hey, this is what I'm gonna do when I grow up, when I get out of uniform. And then you start connecting with people inside of those companies. They're gonna be happy to talk to you. Hey, Dylan, it's Justin. I'm getting out of the Marine Corps in 3 months and I really want to start working for your company, but I just don't know if there's any value points for me. Would you be willing to talk to me for a few minutes and see if I'm a fit? Dylan, hiring manager's like, he's hell yeah, let's go, bud. Let's set up a time. So leverage that time, right? Leverage that time in uniform that you can go get those easy conversations.
The challenge is you brought up the boards earlier, or inspection or whatever, right? The challenge is in the military, you have people to your left and right that are doing it with you. You have people that are higher ranking than you that have done it before, and you have doctrine that lays it out and tells you exactly what to memorize, right? So those are 3 things. You don't have any of those things in the military world. Chances are, if you're ETSing, unless by some miracle that someone's ETSing the same day and going back to the same hometown as you, not going to happen. You no longer have a superior that his or her job to hire you to replace them, and there's not a perfect playbook. So what do you tell veterans, like especially playbook wise? What are some things that veterans think to be true that find out quick, fast, in a hurry are not true?
Well, what's interesting is that you bring that up, and there's something that jumped out to me, and I'm looking to get the post. Here you go, because the U.S. Surgeon General just put out something yesterday. But yeah, I think that's one of the hardest parts of coming out of the military is that esprit de corps and that belief in your mission, I'm really lucky. I believe in my mission. There's no way you're going to get me to take another job. I'm going to go sell widgets somewhere when I can help guys like us, right? So it is. And it is that what the Surgeon General said was lacking social connection is more dangerous than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's the lack of social connection that's hurting us. So you're right. It's not just us going to a job and having somebody to our left and right that's always there to support us, mentor us, right, and drive us. It's the lack of having that connection when you hit corporate America that really kills us, literally and figuratively. So yeah, it's really hard. You need to think about the size of organization. If that's something that's really passionate for you, a smaller company, you're still going to get this type of relationship. Once you get into those really large organizations with like a large footprint, it's down. Now you're going down to the unit size. And hey, is that unit leader a good leader? That's something I talk to veterans about all the time, is interview your supervisor. Because I've been a bad Marine and I've been a good Marine. And it came to my platoon sergeant, right? I've had a good one, I had a bad one. And I think that's really important as far as that, not having that ability to be mentored on the spot and consistently and have somebody that you can call 24/7. That's a hard part when you get out of the military to deal with. You're right. So make sure that you're insulating yourself on your way out, making connections with your buddies, making plans to have conversations with your friends, right? Hey, you're going back home, figure out who else is there that you want to know. On the side note, don't be the Lance Corporal, because this happens, that knocks up his girlfriend or wife, and then 2 months before they're about to have the baby gets out of the military and says, hey, I just bought a house in my hometown. I need a job within a month because we're about to have a kid. That happens a lot too. Yeah,
that TRICARE is a good thing.
Yeah, stick with it while you can. But yeah, you're 100% right. That leaving that really team-oriented culture that is putting the junior person first at all times, right? You're only as strong as your weakest link. Putting that junior, that's totally different in the corporate America for the majority.
100%. I was known as the angry emailer when I got to corporate America. And what I realize now, it's like I wanted someone to give me the answers, because it's like, oh, hey, you were minimally qualified for this job. Here is your desk. Here's your business card, and go lead people. I'm like,
good luck. Yeah.
Right. And I was so frustrated because it was like, well, there was no training. I didn't, and actually my boss at the time was military. He was a Navy guy. And it's like, he had his own demons and his own issues. So he wasn't training me. And my peers were, oh, he's the fucking new guy. Oh, I had to learn it the hard way, and so will you. And it's like, well, how does that fucking serve me? Right. Yeah. And then I was angry all the time because as I figured shit out, I did no one, I mean, they taught me the soft communication skills. I'm like, this is bullshit. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to, ask how your morning's going. I'm going to get to it. So I was frustrated every day because I felt alone and on an island. There wasn't that camaraderie. The idea of that not having someone 24/7, it's like we become interdependent on each other when we're deployed, and then we come back home and you're left to the wolves. Like I mean, here's the deal. If you look at being successful in the military, being successful in business and, in your career and life is really a lot of the same things. It's like, the old adage, right? Your platoon sergeant would always say, on the weekend, don't add to or take away from the population and stay out of jail. Yep. Like when you do those three things, you will be successful. And that's sounds stupid. And actually our very first episode of this podcast, we asked our guest, in his experience in the military, what's one thing he's seen as a common thread? He said, alcohol is bad for veterans. Yeah. And I've reconsidered my drink. I haven't had a drink now in 2 months. There was other things, other contributing factors. And it's like, stay your ass out the bar, right? Like that. You want the 3 steps for success.
Nothing good happens after midnight.
Nothing. And it's true. And it's true in the military. And it's like, we learn that. And yet what's the first thing we do when we come back home? Spend time in the bar. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons is because there's always going to be people there. There's always going to be someone listening. Up until 2:00 in the morning, someone will listen to your sob story.
Yeah, I changed my relationship with alcohol about 5-6 years ago. So
Yep.
best thing I ever did in my life. Congratulations, man. Keep it up. Seriously. It's a big deal. But yeah, we're going to the bar looking for socialization, but we don't realize
100%.
that the alcohol is actually making us an introvert.
Oh,
And it's actually making us less connected. Just like that Surgeon General's report today.
No. As soon as you said that, I was like, that's absolutely dead on. I remember my buddy, call him my buddy, Ryan, was like my best friend for like a year. I went to high school with him. We never really talked. And I was like, man, that's like my best friend. No, he was the bartender. And I tell you, as soon as I stopped going to the bar, I haven't talked to Ryan in years because he wasn't my best friend. He was the bartender. And I perceived like, oh, he's my best friend. Why? Because I was in the bar every night and it was social and it was fun. I like what you said. You changed. Would you say you changed your relationship with alcohol?
Yeah.
I like that. No, but there's a couple of things. We started this podcast. I've watched more and more about my diet and exercise, and really starting to make that a priority in some capacity.
Yep.
And then we actually we lost one of our guys here at work, and that was the last time I had a drink was the day before that. After we had a celebration of life, and then we went to the bar because it's Wisconsin, and I didn't want to have a drink. And I realized it was the same thing years ago when I quit smoking. I smoked and then I was pissed off about something. I was like, I don't even want a cigarette, Yep. And my relationship with alcohol the last 10 years or so has not been a problem. It was at one point, right? I always said, I don't have a drinking problem. I have a problem drinking, right? Yeah. I can have 2 or I can have 10 and I don't know any numbers in between, right? Like because if I'm drinking, I'm drinking. And it's not enjoyable to have 2 beers. Like I don't drink cocktails or this nice glass of wine. No, I drink shit PBR, Miller Lite. Correct. If it's date night, it's an Amstel Light, right? Keep it classy. Thank you, America. I spent the last 2 weeks traveling. I was in New Orleans and Nashville. I spent 7 days in New Orleans, up and down Frenchman Street and Bourbon Street at a conference, free food and free booze all around me. And I don't drink. And for the most part, people respected it. You always get 1 or 2. And I just said, I don't drink. And so that's interesting. I changed my relationship with alcohol because I'm also not like I'm 2 months sober and I have a chip. That's not the place I am. And I don't want to take away from the people that really put that type of work in, because there's some people that put a lot of work in. Me was just like, okay, I'm going to see what happens when I don't drink. And I went to a festival, Jazz Fest in New Orleans. Hot, 82 degrees out, dancing. Like that is that. If I'm going to drink, that's where I drink. And I walked around, drank water all day. And I challenged myself, because when I go to concerts, I generally lose my shoes and my shirt because that's how I live life. And 2 nights in a row, I lost my shoes and my shirt and didn't need alcohol. I have an ex. I have an ex that always said, you don't need alcohol to make poor choices. I'm like, you're right. I don't.
Yeah.
So why? Yeah. So save the money, right? It's more gumbo and jambalaya I could eat, right? I mean, save the money, save the calories,
and you can remember.
Wake up clear-headed every morning. Execute your mission.
Right, but it also challenged me. Am I this outgoing and transparent, and because of the alcohol, or am I that and the alcohol aids it? And I can tell you, once I got out of my own fucking head and danced and had a good time. It was Mumford & Sons. I had a great time. I met some people near me, and I did it without the crutch of alcohol.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to make
confidence, right?
100%. When you're standing there, 80 degrees on a pair of shorts and your flip-flops are in your pocket and your shirt's in your other pocket, and you're the only one dancing, you either fucking dance or you let the peer pressure get to you and you don't dance. Let me tell you something. I fucking danced.
Yeah, it's interesting because stopping it really, same thing. I used to think I was a great communicator on it until somebody would show me a video of me communicating on it, right? So I'll tell you one other thing. There's a great book. I don't know if you guys read. I'm reading it right now. It's The Comfort Crisis, and it's talking about how humanity's become comfortable over the last 100 years, and it's tearing apart our brains.
Terrible. I
just do hard things.
Yes.
Yeah, so just do hard things.
Who wrote that?
I have to go look.
Because Jocko talks a lot about
extreme ownership. That's his.
Correct. He did extreme more, but he also did the same thing. Do hard things. Do something difficult every day. Because
Michael Easter.
Yep, there you go. And what I find is that if you're having anxiety, go do hard things, because your body, once you start doing really hard things, all that stuff that's out in the atmosphere, if you're on the internet or you're doing this type of stuff that is like your brain thinks is physically attacking you, stops, because you're physically trying to stay alive. You're physically trying to push yourself. And then what happens, the rest of the day is easy. Just go do hard things. If you have anxiety, go do hard things early in the morning. And then, like Andy said, find a way to be social. Get connected with people. Go find somewhere socially, whatever you can do. And those two things should help dig you out.
No, I know a lot of guys, they'll ruck. I got a buddy, he rucks. He'll go ruck 12, 15 miles on a weekend. And it's like, why? Well, because it's difficult. Mm-hmm. Or we had a guest on a couple weeks ago. He was talking about climbing or doing like a 20 mile or 30 mile down in Grand Canyon and back.
Yeah,
to do
Mike Easter does that in the book. Yeah,
it's like go do something. It's like it's going to be difficult. I know a couple of years ago I did a 22 miler on Memorial Day weekend, and man, I was sore as could be. And I look back like, well, that was a good fucking day. Like, it was. I mean, I ate like a 1 pound bag of goldfish and had 2 jars of pickle juice. Everyone else is like Gatorade and fucking nutrition bars. I also.
You're like that Lance Coley smoking the cigarette right before they
100% starts running.
It's different.
I also this is the thing.
I lie, I was that guy.
Here's the deal. There you go. There was a gas station bakery that we stopped at like mile 4 to go to the bathroom quick, and it was a Saturday or I think it was a Saturday morning, and they had hot ham and rolls. So I bought 1 pound of hot ham and half a dozen rolls, and I put them in my ruck, and I proceeded to eat them the rest of the 18 miles. So I had hot ham and rolls, like a pound of goldfish, and 2 jars of pickle juice, along with 1 gallon of water, because I was the first one to finish. I started running towards the end, so I'm like, oh, fuck it. I want to be done with this shit. So I started running, and I passed all the kids. I passed all the kids that were like pacing themselves. I'm like, fuck this. I was airborne shuffling. So I was the first one. Of course, it ended at a bar because that's what the military does. And I get there and I was like,
relationship.
Yeah, right. And I was like, everyone's like 5-10 minutes behind me. No, like next person didn't show up for like 20-25 minutes. And I'm sitting there. And I of course, I drank a beer at the end because at that point, and they're like, how'd you finish? Like these young bucks were like, how'd you finish? I was like, fucking hot ham and rolls, pickle juice, and goldfish. And 0 fucks. Y'all got your Nutri-Grain bar and they got their Apple Watches counting their steps now.
It's just pure
0 fucks
and just walking. Like,
well, again, right? That's what makes us unique. Yep.
Oh my God, mine elsewhere. Exactly. It was like
once you go because it's called the flow state, where you're just literally.
Yes.
I'm putting my left foot in front of my right. Left.
You go. Right. I read about the Mike Hychetsky. Fuck, I fucked it up. Mike Hychetsky. He was he's a Hungarian psychologist who wrote about the flow. It's when the challenge, similar to skill and will, it's when the challenge is great enough and your skill set is great enough and they match up, and that's when you're in the flow. I read about that in my book. See, there we go. Get in the flow. And what you can control both things. You control, is the challenge worthy? Because if it's not, you're going to get bored. And is your skill set on point? If the challenge is too high and your skill set isn't there, you're going to feel defeated because you're going to suck. And like Dave Grohl says, right? Dave Grohl said that American Idol has destroyed musicians. The reason is that every band from the early 90s and maybe forever before that was a shitty band in the garage. And they kept showing up. And they kept showing up. And every day they got incrementally better. Versus, hey, you suck at 15. Well, chances are you're going to suck at 15. That's what bands in there. I was in a band when I was 14, 15. We sucked. We were terrible. I got out of the band, right? I guess not a great point to my story here. But, like you have to suck at 15.
Tell me the last time you failed. No.
Oh, my God.
That's an interview question. Tell me the last you
10
failed.
minutes ago.
When I was 14 when I was starting my band.
Yeah, last time. That was, plenty of failures.
Yeah, I highly, what you were talking about, that flow state, I think that's really important because so many of our forever memories are kind of in that moment, right? That moment where you really pushed yourself to the point where you didn't realize you could accomplish it, and you did, right?
Yep.
Where you pushed yourself to failure and figured out where your line is. Those are things that, you know, in corporate America, this is what I do all day. I sit in an air conditioned room, right? Sitting on my butt. That's not going to keep Marine Hendo happy. Marine Hendo needs to push himself, needs to sweat, needs to fail. All right, well, there's the line. Cool. I'm going to make it further next week, you know? And so any vets that are listening now, again, just go do hard stuff. And the hard thing is different for everybody. You know, if you kind of let yourself go and haven't PT'd in a couple of years, man, just get up and take a 15-minute walk, right? That's what happened to Mike Tyson when he was fat. His wife made him she goes, just go on the treadmill for 15 minutes. Within a few weeks, it was 2 hours, you know?
It's better to do something poorly than not at all.
Yep. Forward movement.
Absolutely. Like, because right now you're in the kill zone. So I read about this in my book, right? When you have a stimulus or lack of stimulus, we often go to our lower lizard brain, right? And it's fight, flight, or freeze. We all know this. Freeze is the worst of the three. And unfortunately, it's the one, to your point of being comfortable, that's like people's current state when there's no stimulus. Sometimes you got to walk out of the room. You got to go find adventure, or go pick a fight, right? Not metaphorically, but pick a fight with yourself. What aren't you doing, and what do you need to do about it? Or like you said online, all right, no one's going to hire you. Well, go pick a fight with somebody. Start asking, why won't you hire me? And people might tell you, and that's a good place to start.
Yeah. You know, okay, so that point gives me my favorite interview close that I've heard in my 17 years because of what you just said. So when anybody is interviewing, you can always sense an end, right? That person goes, hey, thank you so much for your time, Dylan. I've got all my questions answered. Do you have any questions for me?
Yep. And
that's when you say, hey, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for your time today. I was really excited to come out here and meet the team. Now that I got to tell you, I think this is the right role for me. So I have to ask before I leave, is there anything you heard from me or saw from me from today that would stop me from moving forward? Because if so, I want one more shot to win this interview. Because like I said, I think I'm the right fit for this role. So what you're doing there is you're telling them that you're interested, because even though it's a business decision, it's very personal to the hiring manager. I equate it to asking somebody to the prom. You know, one's going to be a dead yes, the other one's a coin flip. You may naturally go to the yes just because of the ego. And if it's a hiring manager, they're probably going to shoot you straight, just like you said, Andy. They're going to tell you why they're not hiring. And it may because they didn't understand you had that skill set. I had a munitions officer, Marine, for a safety manager role out of Florida. This was like 9 years ago, something like that. He asked that, him and the guy were talking. They were talking about going to college football games together, just absolutely like about to be buddies. And he asked that question just because I told him to. And the guy said, man, I love you, Gary, but you don't have any safety management experience. I mean, that's key for this role. He said, well, hold on. Like bombs, bullets, that's what I take care of every day. And so he answered that question differently and then got the offer.
There you go, Steve. 53 minutes in, we got our nugget. That's how.
Only took 53 minutes.
Well, that's the thing, is how often is like, you're right. It gets to do you have any questions for us? And you start asking, like, if you haven't already figured out kind of the pay, benefits, or vacation, or like some of those, but right, and not a critical. Hey, I'm interested. What and again, it's a soft skill, because here's the thing in the military, you don't have to ask, and someone to your left or right will tell you what they think about you. In the civilian world, that's not a skill set. People don't say what they think about you to your face. I remember the first time I met Dylan was about a year and a half ago. We were at a networking event. After the event, I was like, hey, man, I like where you're coming from. I like your perspective. I want to sit down and talk to you and figure this out. He's like, all right, bet. I knew I knew I could have that conversation with him being a veteran. Yep. Most civilians, I wouldn't say that to, because I wouldn't be know that I could have a conversation with them, and B, they'd be like, well, what are you trying to sell me? What's your angle? Get fucked. Right? Because in the military, we tell it how it is. There's plenty of veterans I've met where like people introduce you to, and they're like, oh, you guys should be buddies because you're both veterans, and they say something or do something that is unbecoming of your moral compass. Yeah. And then you never talk to them again. And that's good too.
Yeah. Well, that's something too, you step on is like, any large group of people are going to have high performers and laggards,
Yep.
and that's true with the military as well. And also, like, it can leave you over time. If you've been out like me, I've been out 20 years, but I've been lucky enough to interact with vets every day since then. But there are some that are about 10, 20 years that are not as lean, not as mean.
Right.
And maybe they've become too civilianized that they're afraid to have those direct conversations. But again, like we talk about it just keeps coming down to social connection, social networking. With your career change, there's vets out there looking to help other vets. LinkedIn's a great opportunity to socially network and figure out your value. But yeah. Did I miss anything? I don't know.
Well,
you tell me.
I don't think you missed anything. That we didn't really talk about. I think one thing that is paramount in this conversation is going back to what you started with, and talking about like your values and your principles and really honing in on that. But one thing whenever I work with a veteran, it's so interesting to see the relationship we have with courage when we are doing our work in the military and recognizing the value of it and the need for it. And that's why we are able to walk up to, like Andy did to me, walk right up to me and say, "Hey, I gotta talk to you. Here's my question. Let's do this." Because he had the courage, right? And like he built that relationship with courage outside of the military. But in the military, we have that, like, that's a necessity.
Yeah.
You have to have the courageous conversations. But it feels like, again, this is from my experience working with veterans outside of the military. They step into the civilian world and the courage is gone, right? They don't know how to define the value of courage. And it's so well defined in the military, basically for them. Like there's an absolute necessity, there's a culture surrounding it, but they step out and they lose touch with that ability to just step into a situation that they're not strong in, right? And
I wonder. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was talking to a client and we were defining courage, and we came up with this definition, this operative definition for her: the triumph over fear when strength alone cannot be relied upon. And what I think veterans really fail to understand is that they cannot just sit and rely on their strength. They can't sit and rely on their knowledge. They have to take that step back and look at themselves and say, maybe I don't have the answer and someone else does. Because I think we've built this culture, right? And it's interesting with your relationship with this between corporate America and veterans exiting the military and coming into that world. Corporate America has put them on a pedestal, right? But a pedestal that doesn't exist. It's a pedestal of chopsticks, right?
You know what I say? Corporate Hollywood isn't doing us any favors.
Right.
We're not all Navy SEALs, door kickers.
Right. And
you know what I mean? And that's all they expect.
And these veterans come out thinking that I am special, right? Or at least I worry that veterans come out and think, I'm going to get the job. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be golden, right? I don't need to do any of the work that is necessary to get this job or get whatever I need to get. And I think what they don't realize, that this facade of entitlement that comes from corporate America that says, hey, we're looking for veterans. But if you're not courageous enough to step into that light and say, hey, I don't actually know a whole lot, and try and bridge that gap, just like you're doing, you're going to fail yourself, and you're going to fail the interviews. And you're going to get hit in the face by the reality that facade isn't all what it seems to be. It's just this almost lack of honesty to expose that you still have to work for this, just like you worked in the military, and have this conversation.
I'll say that I see some, while I do see some transition out blindly, and if I can speak ill of my own E4 brethren, it's a lot of us, right?
Yep.
That just, wait, I did it, I'm out. And then they go, oh my God, what do I do? But a lot of the 20-year people, 10 plus year, they get it, right? Because they have families or they're starting families. And so they start that career transition that year out, They really start going through the process.
You know,
also, I think I think about college, like whenever you stop going to school, high school, college, whatever, a lot of people just stop learning.
Yeah.
The machine has stopped pushing them, and they don't read every day, right? They don't continue to grow,
right.
And they're stagnant. It's the same thing in the military. Hey, you're running 3 times a week, right? You're kicking your own butt. So the courage you're talking about of having these conversations is easy because in your mind, you already did the hard work. You did the physical thing. So communication's easy. But if that's all the hardest thing you're having is communication, your brain's going to think it's horrible, right? That's where you lack the courage, is because you stopped exercising. You stopped doing hard things. And so now the hard thing is the conversation. In the military, that was easy. Because you know what? You just lifted that guy and threw him over a wall 2 hours ago, right? You just dug him out of a mud pit, whatever it is. So the conversation's much easier when you've done hard things before. And so again, I think a lot of that is just keep doing hard things, guys.
An interesting thought when you were talking about those 10-year, 20-year guys compared to the E4s that, come in for 3-4 years.
Yeah, the 4-year, yeah.
Like I'm done. At least for Army, and I'm sure probably a little bit Marines too. I think the difference is op orders. As weird as that is, I've been an E6 for, I don't know, since 2014, so almost 10 years. I can't tell you how many op orders I've written and given, but the difference between what an E4 does with an op order versus what I do with an op order is exactly the same as what we're talking about. When I have to build an op order, I have to know, and just by virtue of doing, I become so knowledgeable on the mission of the plan of what I'm doing that when the plan goes awry, I know what I can do. I know where my left and right limits are because I built everything and I've spoken it into existence to the point where I know everything I need to know. But then there's this E4 down below that he only receives the op order. He didn't invest himself in writing it or building it. And so he only knows what he needs to know. And that's what I think the difference is like when we become E5s, E6s, E7s, we get to have this intimate relationship with how do you actually build a plan, like a really good, solid plan. And it may not work, but it gives you the understanding of how do you then adapt a plan and give the Warno and Frago when everything goes awry versus these guys that get out 3, 4, 5, 6 years that never have that opportunity to really understand what a plan is or build a solid plan. Like the op order is a very, if not tedious, it is a very structured and good approach to planning. These guys don't get the understanding of how to invest themselves into building that plan. And that's a massively underrated skill, I think, in the military.
Yeah, well, but at the same point, they're individual contributors. So yeah, if they're being mentored for E5, they should start seeing SMEAC, right? They should start seeing the plan. But if you're an individual contributor, it may take away from your responsibility inside of that plan. Yeah. Hey, they don't have the experience to actually understand where they are, what link they are in the chain. It's better just to let them be the link, So I see that definitely. But what I find is, just like me, is that young up and coming E3 or E4, that E6 is going to go, whoa, we've got somebody special here. Hey, come on in. Let me show you how I build this. I think it's more of that inclusive culture from the E6 of you identifying who your up and comers are and who's the 4 and out or 6 and out. Go, hey, well, you're 4 and out. I'm here to mentor and grow you, but I'm not going to try to teach you how to build a plan, knowing that you're not going to ever need that, because it could be totally different in the military because, the military SMEAC plan, which is Marine Corps, right? Situation, mission, equipment, I forget what it all is, but there's no profit or loss in that plan, is there? Right? In the military, in the corporate America, they're like, okay, tell me all the stuff you're going to do. That's fine, but show me this spreadsheet that tells me the money. And that's a totally different conversation.
I mean,
that's
the commander's intent.
Yep. Did we meet the commander's intent? And what resources did we? Well, there is a way to understand the ROI from this is the commander's intent. These are the resources utilized. Did we or did we not make mission?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, if you got, I mean, I ran trucks in Iraq, and very simply, you can say, okay, if you need this many gun trucks per this many vehicles, right? We're not going to take the whole platoon when we don't need to.
Right.
So what does that look like? What's the minimum necessary to make mission? What's the maximum available? And the truth is in between, right? And then you have to also look at, all right, what's the workload on the guys, right? Are you going to burn people out if they run, 40 days straight? Well, probably. Yeah. So what, right? Like look at what's happening, in Ukraine right now. It's like, there's not a lot of soldiers in the reserve. They're just basically throwing people into Bakhmut and just letting the meat grinder do what the meat grinder does. It's a numbers thing. Who's going to have more bodies at the end? It doesn't matter who kills more at this point. It's who's going to have more bodies at the end that are well trained. The Russians had plenty of equipment, and they didn't have the well trained troops, or they didn't have the tires. Right? Absolutely, it plays a role in the military. You have to make it. This is leaders in the military. You have to make it relatable to the frontline soldier. And it's no different than in corporate America. Make it relatable. How does your role in this organization help the overall mission, the commander's intent, the vision statement or mission statement, or in the business world, EBITDA, right? EBITDA, it's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. And if you want to get a job, get smart on what EBITDA means. If you bring up EBITDA in an interview, they'll be like, oh, they understand the language. Right. I've been watching Shark Tank for years, and it's amazing how many entrepreneurs get up there. And you've watched the first 10 years versus the last.
They don't know their numbers, right?
They don't know their numbers. Right. And it's simple numbers. What is your EBITDA is another way to say, what is your profit? Either in dollars or dollars or percentage. Yeah. Ideally, you have both. And what's your CAC, your customer acquisition cost? I tell you, the military, they know exactly how much it costs to recruit a body. They know how much it costs to train a body. And I know that because I'm a career counselor, and I know how much money I have to retain one, because the retainment cost is less than the recruitment cost. Recruit and train. The military, damn right they know their numbers.
They do.
The Army is.
It's just
the Army's a business.
More often than not, it's just a different kind of currency when we're talking, civilian side planning and versus military. Like, we do have numbers, as in recruitment and stuff, but outside of that, like, we got gas, we've got ammunition, we've got, everything that feeds.
What I always crack the joke is military guys, because they always ask, hey, do they have P&L, profit and loss? I said, we've got the L covered.
Yeah.
We're halfway there, guys.
Right.
Teach us
halfway there. You're halfway there.
Thing is.
Yeah. Hey, if we don't use it, we lose it. So better burn it up.
Yeah. Right. It's like September. You're like, we're going to buy ourselves an Apache.
Yep.
Because we have the money for it.
Oh yeah.
I have a buddy here that's a CAV officer, former CAV officer, and he always has the story how you really have attention to detail when you order parts, because he put the hash marker somewhere wrong and he ended up with a helicopter engine.
There you go.
Like, sir,
deal.
There's 2 helicopter engines here. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. No big deal.
Tank.
Yeah. Slight differences. Yeah.
Slight.
Send it back. Yeah. Just send it back. No big deal. We don't have supply chain
Send it back
issues
to Amazon. Tell Amazon to come pick it up. Yeah. I think that as far as we covered commander's intent, which I think is really important. And if you're looking to hire military, I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that individual contributor that you're bringing on, to have them understand commander's intent, so they feel because like what you talked about, Dylan, it's like you want them to understand a little bit of left and right, and give them that ability to kind of improvise, to execute. And in corporate America, like I think it was Andy, you said it was like, hey, it was like 15 minutes of training. Here's a little bit of training, go. Here's your desk. And we know that that's not how you operate. But I will tell you, with veteran unemployment's been stuck at 2.8 to 2.4 for about 16 months. It popped 3%, I think, November or December, and then again dropped back down to 2.2 now. Corporate America has figured out that they can't just use its citizens anymore and say, well, I need you to go over here, then I'm going to drag you from here. They realize they have to upskill, and that they have to put that skill on top of good humans. And I think that's part of the reason, too, that our unemployment's so low, is like, we have a great training program, and every vet's like, great, sign me up.
I am trainable. I am coachable.
That's
being
right?
Being coachable, believe it or not, veterans listening, being coachable is a skill.
Yeah.
I've met some stubborn motherfuckers in this business. Being coachable is a huge skill. Having only been told once, huge skill.
Yep. It's huge. And I mean, I tell my kids all the time, right? Just be coachable, that's how you grow and develop. Yeah. I think understanding that, and, you're going to hear too is, I don't know if you're following the CHIPS Act that's coming through now. That's $52 billion going into the semiconductor industry because China is going to take Taiwan, right? There's an assumption that China is going to blockade Taiwan.
Yeah,
and applied material.
Where are they going to move that to? I heard I was the last I saw was they're moving. The thought was to move it to Mexico. Mexico doesn't have the smart manufacturing though. So is it?
So it's a lot in Phoenix. They're in Phoenix. Okay. Ohio's getting some. New York, and so it's like Applied Materials. It's out of Phoenix. They build all the equipment that goes into these plants to make the semiconductors.
Right, and then they ship those to Taiwan, and then they build them, and then they build the chips in Taiwan right now.
Yeah, so about 38%. So, and so right now the head of global service is a Marine. I had him on Vetonomics, I don't know, 6 months ago, and he said that I've got a bunch of guys going training there, advanced training. So if we have to pop smoke and move that training center to Phoenix, we can do it. And he said, guess who all the guys that volunteered to stay were? And I said, the vets? He said, yep. All the civilians said, no, get me out of here. The vet said, wait, I could sit on my butt for 8 hours a day. You're going to feed me, pay for my hotel. And all I got to do is that for 5 days a week. And they're like, yeah. He's like, okay, how long can I stay? They're all like, yeah, we're here. Tell us when we got to leave. So those are the differences.
Yeah, like 2 episodes ago, we were talking about how 42% of veterans feel like a guest within their own house. And we first approached that topic from a negative perspective, right? And we covered that. And then about halfway through the episode, as we do, it was like, well, how is it a strength then? And well, one of the strengths that we have is we are able to travel. Mm-hmm. We don't have to have the home base. There are some people that need to sleep in their own bed at night. It is they have convinced themselves that they need that. The first time you wake up on a fucking rack in the military, you realize quick, fast, and hurry, you can be your most successful with the least amount of accommodation.
Yeah.
And so now, like to your point, like living out of a bag, fuck, that's a soft skill. There's so many people that they have anxiety for a week before they pack. Me, I was in New Orleans last week and I was like, oh, I'm gonna stay. I packed to stay extra. I was like, all right, I can do laundry, whatever. I wear 3 outfits, whatever. Just I change the shorts, change the shirt. You got a new outfit next day. We're good to hook.
It reminds me of a E6. I placed my first year here into a maintenance manager job, E6 Navy guy. And about 6 months in, he called me and said, hey man, I got to quit. I said, what are you doing? I'm hearing all these great things about you. He goes, my wife and I've been in the Navy 20 years. We can't live together that consistently. And he went and got a field service job because that was right for his family. He kept moving stuff in the cabinets. He kept, messing with stuff. And he's like, what are you doing? Get out of here. And again, they knew how their relationship was supposed to work. Every relationship's unique, right? And he found a way to make it work. It was great. That's a great plan.
I loved it. No, my dad brings it up all the time. He had an uncle. He was an over-road truck driver. He was home 2 weekends a month. 9 kids. Couldn't have been happier. And it's because he drove truck. She stayed home, raised the kids. Yep. Everybody was happy. See? And again, that's fine. It's not. Maybe it's atypical. So what?
Yeah.
It only has to work for 2 people and the children. That's it. Those are the only 2 people it has to work for.
Yep.
I dated a woman for a while, and she lived 90 minutes from me in Chicago, and it worked out great for me. I was boyfriend on weekend and bachelor entrepreneur during the week.
Nah,
and me getting crazy was staying at the office till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I'll tell you what, by Thursday I was burnt out and ready to go back to Chicago. I mean, that 2 years was great. All good things must end.
Yeah, I was one other thing. Have you talked about SkillBridge program on your show yet? Are you guys aware of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
A few times. Yep.
I just want to make sure you're aware of that because that's important.
Yeah, your depth of knowledge is probably better than ours. Our depth of knowledge was, what is this thing? Google it. Oh, this thing's pretty cool. Yeah. And then we've covered it probably 3 or 4 episodes out of whatever episode 17, 18 we're on now. Because it's a good learning piece for us. So we'll start to wrap this thing up. I will say, as an employer and a company, I'm definitely I want to get in with RecruitMilitary. You don't have to give me a sales pitch. I need an operations person, and their skill set is they are military. That's it. Everything else can be trained. Well, it really is, because their attention to detail, and they spent 10 minutes inside of a talk at some time in their career. I built our tactical operations command based off of what I saw when I was in Iraq. It's the same basic setup. Mm-hmm. What I saw in Iraq, what we used in training, and then also what I saw in Gitmo, when you have live real-time feeds everywhere. So whatever. I'm looking for somebody. So put me down as a customer. Done.
Okay. Yeah. Great. That's awesome to hear. But one thing I talk about is the differences of leadership between officer and NCO. Mm-hmm. The officer has to disconnect from their team, right? That loneliness of leadership. That way they can see the whole picture and make the plan. Yep. Where the NCO needs to be embedded to execute that plan. And any hiring authorities that are looking to hire, make sure you're targeting the right type of leadership. Mm-hmm. And as a veteran, make sure you're targeting the right role. I placed a bunch of JMOs, junior military officers, into Toyota Motor Manufacturing back in 2012, 13, because they said, hey, we want leaders. And JMOs are great leaders. I said, okay, let's go. Well, what happened was, what's the JMO's job, right? To sit down in their seat, practice tactical deafness. Hey, just because this worked yesterday doesn't mean this is what we need to do tomorrow. Improve the plan, hand it to their senior NCO to execute. Yep. Well, it's Toyota. It's 97% effective and efficient. The guys were banging their heads off the computer screen, not being able to make anything work, and they left. I placed a bunch of E7, 8s, and 9s in there. They're going, whoa, this is a great order. I'm going to go execute. And they all started getting promoted, bringing techs up with them, and it was just amazing. And it was such a great lesson to me about the different types of leadership. Mm-hmm. So make sure you're going in a role that's going to be your strength of leadership.
I like that. All right, I'll take that as your takeaway, Justin, because I like that. That's a good wrap up in all the things we talked. Dylan, what was something you heard? What's top takeaway from you?
Why don't you go? I'll close this out. I got it written down somewhere.
I'm gonna go. See, Dylan's the smart guy. I do the talking, he does the thinking. Between the two of us, we figured it out. My takeaway is, there are, because I saw you on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And I see RecruitMilitary, and my spidey sense always kick off right off the bat that, there's another whatever, right? I've seen a million of these companies, and I had to have that come to Jesus moment. It wasn't a big deal. I'm like, you know what? Now we have this podcast. This podcast for me is my 1 hour to dedicate towards the veteran side of me, right? I'm 19 years, I'm still in, so I'm still around it. And with our business, about half our guys are vets, so I'm still in it in a lot of ways. And it's also an opportunity for me to get external. And so I'm really glad that you took me up on it, because I do want to give good resources. I don't I don't know what I don't know. And so finding people like you where it's like, hey, everything you said checks out. It makes sense. It's a good resource. I know there's companies out there that want to support veterans. And I also know there's companies out there that want to support themselves and use veterans. And so discerning that and doing it on behalf of our listeners is always a good use of our time and a good understanding who's out there, because there are veterans, myself included, from a hiring standpoint, that need you and need your company and what you guys do. And there are veterans on the need to get recruited standpoint that also need you to bridge the gap, so that they can cut down the amount of time and headache and frustration to get where they want to get. And what you said about Toyota is a case in point. If you say, hey, I need a leader, well, that means a lot of things to a lot of people. Let's get this thing honed in. Dylan, what you got for us?
I want to go back to what Justin offered for that interview closing. I think it's what it is an ability to set your ego aside and ask a question that opens up just dialogue that either benefits you in, hey, here's the issues that you might have. That you can then work on, or here's a potential way to shoe myself back in when I thought the chips were gone, right? Like where
that's why I love that.
I have an ability to then have a conversation to advocate for myself. And I would really I really think that's a fantastic closing and a way to really dynamically set yourself apart from so many people in the interview. And those are the kind of skills and tactics that are really necessary to kind of step into the civilian world. Is you need to be able to have conversations that aren't about your ego or about why you're angry. It's how can I assess the situation and discuss my way around it rather than feel my way around it. That's always what I'm always focused on. So I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Justin.
If I could, that brought
Please.
up one more is when you're interviewing, you're kind of trained to be a humble leader. In corporate America, it's not quite that way, right? Hey, braggadocious, like, look how great I am. I'm somebody's boss. So when you're interviewed and you're asked a question about leadership, hey, what's the time you accomplished this? It is natural for us as veterans to use a plural. Well, what we did was, even though the question was in the singular, asking you, Dylan, how did you impact your team? You as a good servant leader and go, well, what we accomplished was we came up with. And if you're not interviewing with a true leader, they're going to see that as, hey, Dylan didn't do anything, his team did. So remember, if you're being interviewed a leadership question, it's in the singular, respond in the singular. That's the time to brag. That's the time to talk about what a great leader you are.
Yeah.
Oh, that was another nugget. There we go. We finished strong. And that's what we do here at the Welcome Home podcast. Takes a little bit to get warmed up, and that's the good stuff, right? Because what it comes down to is feel each other out, and this is what it's all about when you are transforming from the soldier, sailor, airman, marine, coastie, space cadet. I don't know if there's a good name for that. Into the veteran, the civilian world. You're not going to get it right the first time, every time. And so it's important you get out there, you have conversations, you meet new people. We talked about last episode, maybe the one before that. Go meet 10 people and figure out what you like or don't like about all of them before you make one assessment. And even thing here, right? If you have some preconceived notions and preconceived ideas of who somebody is, great. Go sit down, have a cup of coffee with them, have them on your podcast, and then learn how we can both come together and make this veteran community much better. So we can get rid of all the negative stigmas and really promote what is good within the veteran community. So thank you again for joining us on another week. Justin, thank you for coming on, showing us a new way forward and sharing your wisdom. Dylan, as always, thank you for joining me, being the co-host, and focusing on the feelings while I focus on the facts. That's what I thought about when you said that. Maybe that'll be our new tagline. You want facts? I
do like that.
There we go.
Well.
It slaps well, right? Feelings matter
to
some people. That's why Dylan's here, and because he hears things I don't hear, and that's good. That's why we have a co-host, because you can say the same thing. We hear two different things. So, as always, thank you for joining us this week, and as always, welcome home.
Thank you, gentlemen.